Thanks a lot to Christine Schink, and now I'm very happy to introduce Sibylle Grabert, talking about regulatory sandboxes, enabling innovation and advancing regulation. Since 2015, Sibylle Grabert has been employed at the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. Since then, she had various responsibilities, including the projection of Germany's economic development, economic policy analysis, and the EU-Mercosur trade agreement. Since the middle of the year, she is member of the Coordination Office for Regulatory Sandboxes at the Ministry, which is in charge within the federal government of all tasks regarding regulatory sandboxes at national and European level. Please welcome Dr. Sibylle Grabert.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks a lot for the nice introduction, and thanks a lot for having me here, to giving me the opportunity to talk to you about regulatory sandboxes. I had the chance to listen to really inspiring talks and presentations this morning already, and I think all of you would agree that innovation is just everywhere. Especially here with AI, we just see it everywhere. And I think you all would agree as well that innovation is really key and urgently needed to a lot of problems that we are confronted with as an economy or society as well. So that is something policymakers know as well, of course. But it's not only about having innovation, promote innovation, and all the brilliant heads that develop this. It's also about bringing innovation to the market, because if we don't use it, it doesn't make sense and doesn't solve any problem. We thought about that several years ago already in the ministry, how we could resolve this problem, because all of you know, this morning Marco Buschmann said, digital first, bedenken second, but I think all of you know there are a lot of restrictions hindering innovations from coming to the market. So we came up with the idea at federal level, that's what my ministry did, with the idea of regulatory sandboxes, and this is what I want to talk to you about today. So what are regulatory sandboxes? I'm not sure if everybody here is familiar with this. Sandboxes itself are actually a very innovative instrument, and we also had some hard times to bring it into action, so we also know how this feels. But I think we have come quite far now. So a regulatory sandbox is a test area that is installed for a certain time and space where an innovator, a company that has an innovative idea or business model can test its innovation in a real-world environment. And there are kind of two views on that, why we need that. So the one view is yours, the innovators, the companies that are somehow hindered to come to the market to test their innovation very often because of general legal frameworks. So there are restrictions that just not allow you to test your innovation in the market. So in that case, which is a pretty frequent case, we are able in a sandbox to implement experimentation clauses in law. So an experimentation clause allows you as an innovator in a sandbox to get an exception. So the authority responsible can grant you an exception from the law to make testing of your innovation in the real world possible. But it's not always legal restrictions. Sometimes it's not a restriction, but just the complexity of regulations, bureaucracy, whatever, that just makes it slow, not efficient, or even not possible to test an innovation. So this is the innovator's view, and we think it helps you a lot to get to the market and to test your products in a faster and more efficient way. But there's also the other side, which is kind of our side as the government, as authorities, legislators, which is the regulatory side. Because AI is probably then the best example for that innovation is going faster and faster, and regulation doesn't keep pace. So for regulators, it's also very important to be really close at the innovations, and sandboxes allow regulators to follow the testing, to learn about the effects of an innovation, and thereby to have regulatory learning, how we call it. So by regulatory learning, we prevent over-regulation, which I guess especially in AI is also a very important component, and try to keep pace with innovation and provide a good regulation to your products. Here's just a very short example, maybe one of the most famous ones. Probably all of you have seen that at some point some years ago, which is the hub chain in Osnabrück. So that was a sandbox that was installed for the testing of on-demand autonomous buses to connect the rural area to public transport. So people who lived in little villages somewhere and didn't have any connections, no choice in taking their car, could take this so-called Hubi to be connected to the transport. And to make this sandbox possible, we had to implement 2 experimentation clauses, one was in the Passengers Transportation Act to make on-demand transport possible, because that was just not in the law, and the other one in the Road Traffic Registration Regulations to make autonomous driving possible. That was in the beginning of 2020, I think, 2019, 2020. So both of that needed an experimentation clause. And it was a very successful sandbox. And in the end, just to show you also the regulatory learning side, we had the success to create a general rule. So what was an experimentation clause before became general law, and now the Passengers Transportation Act allows on-demand transport. So this sandbox offered a totally new possibility, which is now a general rule. So I want to take a short look back on what we did already. As I told you, the Ministry of Economics started with this instrument of regulatory sandboxes some years ago. In 2019, the Coordination Office of Regulatory Sandboxes was installed, where I work at, and at the same time, we implemented the strategy on regulatory sandboxes. And this strategy consists kind of 2 pillars. There's one pillar, which is, you see here, is made of soft measures. So we have a network that we created, where we have now more than 850 members. This is really from any field, and they have a great exchange there and learn from each other. Then we offer up-to-date information to the members, but also, of course, to everyone. You can find it on our homepage, which is the handbook of regulatory sandboxes that guides you through design and how to implement the sandbox. Maybe something really important for you as well is a practical guide to data protection, because we already heard it and all of you know data is kind of the most sensitive thing you have in AI, so maybe this is very useful for you too. And so we do events, we are a contact point, and offer information to people interested. And the last point on the slide maybe is kind of the cherry at the cake. Every 2 years, our minister awards an innovation prize to successful, the most innovative, let's say, sandboxes. So you can apply if you take part in a sandbox one day. So, and then you have the other pillar, which is more the concrete measures in the strategy. As you can imagine, sandboxes are implemented in totally different areas. So we had the bus driving example, but we have a lot of digital things. We have drones, we have digital identities, which is, for example, we had a hotel app. So this is all different areas of law and different responsibilities between the ministries. So in 2019, we directly also installed an interministerial working group where we have a very close exchange to create a good and uniform legal framework for sandboxes over all those areas. Beginning of this year, we also installed a federal lender working group that we coordinate in our office, because sandboxes often are implemented in regionally restricted areas and are under the responsibility of lender authorities. So this exchange is also very important to have a good coordination there. As I told you, we set experimentation clauses in national law in place, and there's also a guide for experimentation clauses published, because lawmakers from all fields need to know how to formulate such an experimentation clause when you want to set up a sandbox. Yeah, so that is what we have done so far. So you see, we did a lot in the last years. It's quite still a new topic, but we take it really serious and important. And now the next step, actually we are already in the middle of it, is to write a federal regulatory sandbox law. So we have a mandate from the Coalition Treaty to do so, and it needs to enter into force till 2025. We are in the middle of the process, and just now in summer we published a green book that collects our ideas, proposals, and also questions, actually. We still have a lot of questions because that has never been done before. It's quite a new instrument, and so we also mandated a legal opinion, because we are mostly actually economists in our office, so the legal part is quite complicated to us as well, and actually to the lawmakers as well. So yeah, this is where we're in, and we really are in the middle of the process. So what we know is that the law will have 4 elements. The first one is, which is also in the Coalition Treaty, that we want to offer new possibilities for innovators to bring their products to market. So sandboxes shall become more common, more easy to access, and this is really a goal that should be made possible by this law. We want to have overarching standards for regulatory sandboxes. This is something really important, because we still don't have a uniform legal framework for that. And so if we put standards, it might also be easier to create experimentation clauses and to make this instrument more, like attractive for lawmakers as well, because of course sometimes there are frictions to them. We want to implement an experimentation clause check when new laws are written. So that means that we want legislators to have sandboxes already in their mind when they write new laws. Because we never know in which area we will have sandboxes in the future. So if laws are written in a way that make experimentation clauses possible, that make future sandboxes a lot easier. And the last thing is a one-stop shop for sandboxes, which should collect like all about sandboxes, let's say. But that doesn't mean we want to create a super authority, something blown up, but just the contrary. We want to have something streamlined, easy to access, digital for you as sandbox participators, where you can just find an answer to all your questions, all your doubts, and you don't have to run to 100 different places to get answers to your questions. So this is all what we do, and actually it's just the right time now to give that talk to you, because we're still in the middle of a consultation, a public consultation, where we ask for you insights. And this is not something we just do for pro forma, whatever, purposes, but we really, really want to know what you think. Because just if you tell us what problems you are confronted with, what questions you have, what you need in practice, only then we can write a really good law for you. So I urgently ask you to, if you have some time, take part in that consultation. I'm just seeing this little typo. Of course, it's meant to be BMWK. And then you will find it on the homepage, and we really appreciate if you take part there. So now I want to step to the EU level. The Ministry of Economics, as we kind of invented all this instrument here in Germany, other countries did as well, but here in Germany we were the first ones to do this. We are also responsible at EU level, and I think we can be a little proud of that as well, because sandboxes were nothing at EU level before the German presidency in 2020. So we brought this instrument to EU level, and in the end, successfully implemented it in the Council conclusions of the presidency. And it was the first time that member states agreed on an idea what regulatory sandboxes are. And the EU Commission also took this very serious, and from then on, regulatory sandboxes were implemented in all those legislative acts that you can see here. It is also a key instrument now of the European Innovation Agenda and the Commission's Better Regulation Toolbox. But I guess the most important act for you, it was talked about it quite often today already, is the AI Act, which my ministry is also responsible for. That's my colleagues. I think they are on the stage at some later point today or tomorrow. But we are responsible for 2 articles in there which are on regulatory sandboxes. So actually, the importance of the AI Act for us as the responsible ones for sandboxes can't be overestimated, because it's the very first time that we have common rules for sandboxes at EU level in an act. So this is really something we reached, and it also contains important elements. So the first thing is supervision and guidance. As I said before, it's sometimes not even legal restrictions, but just the complexity of the framework, of regulation, of all you are confronted with. And member states, if the AI Act is implemented that way, and we are pretty confident it will happen, at least Article 53 and 54 on sandboxes, so then member states will be obliged to set up sandboxes, and they have to offer supervision and guidance, which helps a lot to innovators to comply with all the rules and the laws, and helps a lot to bring their products to the market. A second special thing is a legal basis for further processing of personal data. I said it before, data, we know personal data, that's something kind of a hot topic, and within the sandbox, it will be allowed now to use personal data a second time for a different purpose without asking for permission again. So that is an exception granted that is very special in a sandbox, in an AI sandbox. There are 2 further things. First of all, that you can't be fined for infringements of the AI Act if you are within a sandbox and you follow the sandbox plan. So if then accidentally something happens, whatever, you won't be fined by the authorities. And the last one is that something we reached to put in this article as well, that the authorities the authorities that are responsible for those sandboxes, if they have decisions to make, and they have discretion here, so they can decide either way or the other, they are obliged now to decide pro-innovation. So that's something, it doesn't sound so much, but working in administration and public service as well, I know that this is something that means a lot for innovation, because it's not made easy anymore to just go the other way. So implementation in Germany will come once the AI Act is decided, but of course it's still under discussion, and our task here as the Ministry of Economics is now to have our eye on this, that sandboxes are always in mind during the implementation, because of course to offer supervision, to offer advice and guidance in a sandbox also needs capacities. You need persons who do that in the authorities. And yeah, we will take care that it really works in the end. So thanks a lot. I think I'm just in time. I want to remember you again, please take part in the consultation. We appreciate it, and we really read all of your ideas and insights from the practice. And thank you a lot for your attention.